Lions just recovered a fumble.
Bits of wisdom.
It's Harry Houdini, I'm pretty sure.
That's when it kind of becomes Home Improvement After Dark.
I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Very good. I don't know if you noticed, Jordan, but a really cool aerial shot of the table. Reasonably funny.
User review.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Impodcast time!
That's right. Binford Tools is proud to present a Home Improvement Podcast. My name is Adam, and you all know my co-host, Jordan, the Truth Lyons. Jordan, probably the biggest Home Podcast to date today. How you feeling?
Oh my goodness. Emergency podcast. We had planned on taking this week off in between season 2 and season 3, but we got an offer we couldn't refuse.
Yeah, much like The Godfather. We didn't really get the offer per se. We sent out the offer, but you know where I'm going with the Godfather references. So yeah, it's a big day. It's a huge day. We've been excited about this for upwards of 2 days since we found out it was going to happen. So it's,
when I found out during dinner, I just basically couldn't figure out what to do next. I forgot how to eat. Food everywhere.
You spit out your gluten-free pancakes that you were eating. You did several spit takes. I haven't slept in days. I feel like an NBA player before Game 7. This is my Game 7. And
this is it.
Yeah, we always knew we were headed to this moment, didn't we, Jordan? Jordan, what is this moment, though? What are we doing?
I guess we should let people in on the secret, huh? Even though we posted it everywhere?
That's true, yeah.
And it's probably going to be on the title of the episode. But just in case you can't read and can only hear, we have a very special guest on the show today, and that's going to be Richard Karn.
The Karn Man himself.
The Karn Man.
The man, the legend. We're excited. We're very excited.
We're very excited. So without further ado, let's bring on our special guest.
Let's do it, Jordan. Yeah, baby. And today we're joined by a very special guest. Yes, indeed. This is a joyous day here on Home Impodcast. The kind of day that makes you, the kind of day that you tell your grandkids about as you bounce them on your knees. The kind of day that makes you believe in fairy tales. The kind of day that dreams are made of. The kind of day that makes you feel glad to be alive. Some of you may know our guest as the Carnivore. Perhaps less of you the Karn Man. We've all been accused of being crazy for Karn, to be sure. For 202 episodes, this man assisted the Tool Man while unquestionably being more knowledgeable and capable than his alleged boss. He spoke softly, but when he spoke, the masses gathered round to hear what this bearded, flannel-wearing messiah was to say next. He may not have been number one on the fictitious Tool Time call sheet, but he was assuredly number one in our hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, today on our show, we have the man, nay, the legend, who portrayed one of the most iconic television characters in recent memory. The character was Al Borland, and the man is Richard Karn. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, I feel like I should have my own theme music now.
I'm just happy to have gotten through that.
Yeah, we practiced ahead of time. That is a lengthy intro, but
well, that's how you get to Carnegie Hall.
Is that a pun? Is that K-A-R-N?
Yes, it is. Carnegie.
The first of what I hope are many Karn puns.
Oh, man. All right. Well, how's everything going for you this morning, Richard?
Great. It's a beautiful day here in sunny California. I'm about to go out and play some golf. It's a wonderful day. It's Father's Day weekend. Couldn't be better.
Hey,
absolutely.
Indeed. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we've done some research, relying off the tools of Wikipedia and other reliable sources of that nature. So we kind of want to just, we're going to talk primarily about Home Improvement. We're going to talk a lot about the first 2 seasons because that's kind of where we're at in the show. We just finished the 2nd season, so we're still pretty early on in the run. But online, I read something about how the role was obtained, and I've heard you say in interviews you've talked about the Stephen Tobolowsky kind of replacement. But online, I read about a story about receiving a traffic citation, going to traffic school, and then being next to an agent who told you about the show. Is that how it went down? Is that kind of the origins of the role and kind of how you came to it?
Yeah, that's kind of how it happened. It's weird. You never know where your opportunities are going to come from, and mine happened to be during an 8-hour traffic school, comedy traffic school here in West Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I was stuck next to this person who, she happened to be this agent who we knew certain people in the business that we talked about during the 8 hours when we weren't, studiously listening to what we should be doing inside of a car. But Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that I knew the producers. So when I found this out, I felt comfortable enough to give them a call, and best phone call I ever made.
Yeah, definitely. It says also you were managing an apartment complex at the time. Is that something that you continued to do after you took on the role, or how long did that last?
Those are one of those jobs that you have, as a young actor. You're a waiter, you're a bartender, you're an apartment manager. And actually, our first apartment in L.A. Was managed by another actor, and he kind of, like a year later said, listen, this company that I work for is opening up a management position in one of the buildings down the street. Would you be interested? And my wife and I just said, sure, free rent. That sounds great. All we got to do is, make sure people take care of the apartment.
Right.
It was a great job, and I did. I held on to that job, kind of into the run of Home Improvement. Not very long, because it soon became apparent that was going to get in the way.
Yeah, definitely. All right, great.
All right, so now that we're into the way you got the role, we'll talk a little bit now about the actual role. So we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of Al. As Adam said, we're just in a couple seasons now. So Al at this point is not really fleshed out. We don't have quite the context of the character. Can you talk about maybe what kind of influence that you had and what kind of imprint that you could put on the character of Al as it moved throughout the series?
Yeah, obviously the pilot and the first few episodes, they weren't writing for this particular character. This character was treading water until the character that they envisioned was going to come in and take over. But what slowly happened was Tim and I, our relationship, and I don't know, what it is, but the audience, the live audiences, kind of knew who we were before we did. We would say something that we didn't think was particularly funny or whatever, but the audiences laughed with kind of an inside knowledge of who these two guys are, more than what we were expecting. And about 3 or 4 episodes in, when the writers wrote this kind of innocuous line, "I don't think so, Tim," it kind of took on a whole life of its own for the writers. All of a sudden, the writers, it crystallized in their mind who these two people were, and this was something that they could work with going ahead. And so I didn't really put any spin or anything on it. I just kind of took my time and looked at Tim, which got a laugh, and then said, "I don't think so, Tim," and that got a laugh.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear that the writers just kind of stumbled upon something that became just, the main catchphrase. Really. Yeah, iconic. Yeah. The main catchphrase of the show. That's really interesting. In terms of the character Al, or just kind of your acting performances, what were you drawing on? I did read online that your father was something of a contractor, so maybe you came in with some background knowledge on tools and things of that nature. But what were you drawing on, or who influenced you?
I have done a lot of theater at that point. I'd been in New York for 11 years, doing theater in school before that. So I kind of was playing. I was playing the role as written. However, this isn't a play anymore. This is something that evolves over the week. So, words aren't written in stone, and things kind of, happen or get taken away or put in and things like that. So it was very fluid. I was really wanting to help Tim. Tim was not that he was, he's not a vulnerable guy, but he's a stand-up who wasn't sure if his acting prowess would stand up to, Pat, who played Jill, his wife, or whatever. So he was always a little nervous, and I felt like I was there to really kind of help him along, motivate him, whether he knew that or not. That's kind of how I felt for the first few episodes. I was just damn glad to be there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's we've come across that a couple of times where when Tim kind of started the show, there was some concern that maybe he wouldn't have the chops or the experience of something, like a Patricia Richardson or you or the.
But he did. Cast. He just had to rely on his his wit, and he's very funny. He's a very funny guy.
Definitely.
Yeah, his wit and his instinct for sure. So let's talk a little bit more about seasons 1 and 2, since we're still early on in covering the series. Do you have any particular memories that stick out, besides the ones that you've mentioned so far that really have just been cemented in your brain to this day?
Oh my gosh! Well, I remember one of the first times that Tim and Al were outside of Tool Time. They brought on a new writer, Roz, and Tim and Al were in a department store looking for clothes for his wife, and that bit where I pulled out my oh shoot, words escape me now, but my measuring device, and measured the backside of a dress, like I knew what I was doing or something like that. That was funny. That made me laugh.
Yeah, that's a really funny scene where all of the women are just sort of throwing themselves at you. That must have been a tough scene for you to play with all these women just in you.
Well, Al doesn't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, his radar is very undervalued at that point. He's not thinking that women are that interested in him, so he just kind of goes along.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's part of the comedy. Anything else kind of stand out from those first 2 seasons in terms of just memorable scenes or moments on the set?
I remember we were getting ready to go do some kind of party outside of the show, and I knew most of these people from rehearsal, and shows when we would just be in our normal stuff, but we're getting ready to go out to this party, and Pam Anderson shows up in like this makeup, and it was like it was weird. It was like full on, battle makeup almost. It was weird because she's so pretty without it that it seemed distracting to me at that point. But then you go to the party and you just see people just stare at her. And I'm going, well, this is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I've learned from that.
Yeah, foreshadowing what was to come, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, when did you know that the show had kind of captured something special? You get the job, you get a traffic court, you stay on, you're there for a season. You're not bumped up to the opening credits until the second season, so maybe there was some ambiguity as to what was going to happen to your character. But when did you think that the show had kind of captured something special, or was going to be around for the long haul?
I don't know if I actually knew what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Not being aware of the television scene that much. However, when we were filming the pilot, I knew that this was good. This was funny, and audiences were responding quickly, and then when we saw it all edited together, I go, wow, this is going to be a really great show. I'm not going to be with it, but I'm glad that I was in the pilot, and then when it started airing, I get a phone call from my dad, and he's getting phone calls from his friends who've seen the show, now telling him, that this show is great, and he was cool with me being an actor, but I don't know if he really understood what that meant. With theater and stuff like that, it happens and it goes away and it's not there anymore. With television, it doesn't go away. It stays there, and so many more people were paying attention to that. And he calls me up and he goes, "Wow, I got to tell you, you really look like you know what you're doing."
That's about the ultimate compliment.
The ultimate compliment. He's still thinking of me as a 10-year-old kid who can't, nail a nail.
Yeah, that's really good. The Home Improvement pilot is, for my money, one of the better pilots, certainly of that era. I mean, it's effective just in all. It sets up the majority of the characters. It's very funny. It's heartfelt, and it definitely portrays what's to come. Jordan, what do we have next?
Yeah, so the show ended, obviously, 1999, so it's been over 15 years, a little while. And, it's apparent that you had a great relationship, the whole cast did, while you were on the show. Has that relationship, maintained pretty well, and you guys are still in touch regularly?
We're in touch, but it's very, it's very different. It's the difference between, the people that you hung out with in high school, and then you see them once in a while during college or after college. So it's kind of like everybody has their own lives in a way that they get caught up in, and then every once in a while you get together and have a drink and talk about, wasn't that funny? However, Tim and I played golf with him last Monday for the Screen Actors Guild charity event, and I always laugh very hard when I'm with him. It's cathartic. It's really fun, and we had a little home improvement gathering last Saturday night, mostly crew. Most of the crew was there. I think the three boys were there with their parents and me. Tim and Pat couldn't make it. Earl, of course, and Debbie's doing a show in Colorado right now where she goes to ranches and dude ranches and that kind of stuff. So she couldn't make it. But it was really great to see all these people that we had spent so much time with.
Right. Who is the better golfer, you or Tim?
Definitely I am.
No need to even pause or him and ha on that.
But he has heart, and he wants to get better. He wants to be able to beat his wife. He wants to be able to look like he knows what he's doing when he goes out and does charity events like that. So
yeah, I would say I have heart as a golfer as well. Just much talent. That's a fair depiction.
Fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of after the show ended, any props or anything particular from the show that you took with you off the set, or anything that you kind of hold on to
well,
this day?
Tim was the king of that. I think he has in fact, I know he has the entire Tool Time set.
Oh, wow.
He has it set up at his offices. So he has the biggest prop ever from that show. What's funny? After the first season, we come back, and I go to get my tool belt, and it's gone. In its place is like this new, kind of brand new fabric tool belt with nothing in it, and it's just, you got to fill it back up again. Well, where's my tool belt? Well, I mean, I took pains in getting the right tools in there and roughing it up in the right places like that. It's gone, and I find out that Disney took it down to Disney World to put it in their museum. So all of a sudden, I had a tool belt where I could kick the hammer out of it perfectly,
right? And
then it's gone.
Man,
but I still have that tool belt. I have that in my office. So
they couldn't take the second one from you.
Yeah. They didn't have to. They already got the first one.
Yeah, it's still hanging out down here probably. So this question's a little bit different, but I think it's something that we definitely want your input on. So, how much credit do you take for the recent rise in popularity and sex appeal of flannel and beards overall? I mean, they're everywhere.
How much credit do I take?
Yeah, I mean, all of it.
Yeah,
half of it?
Percentage-wise, is it 100% you're doing? 90%? I mean, it's it's definitely very
funny. What's funny is when we started the show, I'm from Seattle, so everybody just figured I was kind of the nucleus of the grunge look at that point in the early 90s, because the grunge look was the same thing, beards and flannel shirts like that. Valerie, who did the costuming for us, the first few episodes, she would get these flannel shirts or these plaid shirts like Ralph Lauren and stuff, and they didn't fit me, because I'm not a model or whatever, as well as the ones that we could get, like at Sears or whatever. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah, we have a very natural podcast, so the lawnmowers are going in the background, dogs will be barking, sneezing, so don't worry about it.
So these shirts that were like, in the early 90s, $110, $120, I said, just go and get the $35 ones. They fit better and they actually look better on camera. Yeah. And that's kind of how that happened in a way. The beard was something I had at that point. As a young actor, you don't think a beard is going to be that commercial, because you have to stay open to lots of different looks and like that. But I had this beard for a while because I just done a play. I just done a Shakespeare play, and the producers liked the beard. So, part of them calling me back to fill in was maybe based on that, because it was a look that Norm Abrams and those guys had on public television. So the beard kind of came with it in a way, and hence Al Borland was born. And the first time they did that great bit where we're backstage changing out of our Tool Time outfits, and I'm changing into the exact same shirt that I pull out of my locker was a great sight gag.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Well, it sounds like you take about 100%. That was a long way of saying, I caused all of that.
I think it's fair.
Yeah, that's all right. So recently, Richard, you appeared on the season finale, or one of the final episodes of Detroiters, playing yourself. Obviously, it's a very funny show, kind of focused on Detroit.
Yeah, do you watch that show?
I do. I've watched half of the first season and then the last episode in preparation for this. But I really like Sam Richardson. I think he's just a kind of a up and coming comic genius right now. How did that kind of transpire?
Oh man, that was so funny. They called up and said, "We want you to play you."
Yeah. And
I go, "Oh wow, that's so weird." I'm just now I am of the status of just playing me.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know how I felt about that, but they wrote a song for because I was playing the host of a Detroit advertising award show, and so there was a song, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was going to go on, and so I show up, and they come to the trailer where I'm hanging out. And they go, "Well, do you know the song?" I go, "Yeah, well, you wrote it." And, "Well, can we hear it?" And so I kind of sing, and they go, "Yeah, that's perfect, great. Oh, and we want you to learn a magic trick. We got this magician who's going to show up, and there's a magic trick, and then we'll have you do some other stuff, but don't worry about it." And they go away, and I go, "Okay, well, and I get in my costume, which is now, they wanted me to wear my owl outfit over like a tuxedo.
Yeah.
And I look like the Michelin Man. It was hysterical. I said, this is television, so what we can do is I can look like I'm about to take off, rip away the Al Borland, and then we can just cut to me having a tuxedo underneath. We don't actually have to have that really. And eventually they kind of agreed with me. It came down to the point where we looked at it, and they go, "Yeah, it doesn't look great. You're right. Okay, let's do that." So, so I'm dealing with that, and there's about 150, 200 extras in this hall with a stage, and they come in and say, "Okay, we're going to shoot this scene from your point of view. We're going to look at the guys down watching you first. That's the first setup." And so just do the song, do the magic trick, just do the stuff, and they're going to be watching. But we're not filming you. I go, "Oh, okay, so no choreography, no rehearsal, no, just 200 people watching me just do it. With no rehearsal, just kind of, here we go. Bada bing, bada boom, let's go." And it's weird because they're all just kind of they're looking at me as me, and they're yelling up, says, "We love you," and this was one guy was, "I'm just getting into acting. Do you have any advice?"
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember the song and whatever. Ultimately, when they turned the camera around, there was no choreography, there was no rehearsal. It's just do what you were doing. That was really good. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
When we finally see the final product, you saw how there were quick cuts, and you kind of saw a semblance of what transpires, and it was fun. It was hysterical.
Yeah, the gag of the rip-away, tear-away suit, really, I mean, regardless of the cutting or how it transpired, it looked really good. It was really a huge laugh. I really got a kick out of that. Any plans for the character to come back? Maybe a reoccurring Richard Karn Detroiters role, like a Carl Weathers?
I pitched him an idea. I said, listen, you guys are doing local commercials, and, a big thing on Home Improvement was our Halloween show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Halloween show was always kind of a big production.
Right.
And I thought, well, you could do a local commercial for one of those stores that pops up that just does Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
And we could do something there. And I pitched them that idea, and they said, yeah, okay, we'll think about that.
Yeah, that'd be
but you never know.
Yeah, it's possible. I have those stores that just come into abandoned old Barnes and Nobles for 2 months, and then they leave.
Halloween.
Yeah, that's the kind of advertising they do anyways.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, social media seems to be everywhere nowadays, and that's how we got in touch. Yeah, that's how we got in touch with you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
We were curious how the rise of that has affected your relationship with the fans and the show as a whole.
Oh gosh, I am not as social media savvy as a lot of people, and there are some people that hire people to do that for them, to tweet for them every day or whatever. That I felt that was kind of weird. So I throw stuff out there every once in a while, and that. But I'm not as prolific at it. But the fans seem to, they love Home Improvement. However, when you see some of these lists of the best shows from the 90s or whatever, a lot of sometimes Home Improvement isn't even in there, and I go, how can that be? How can that just transpire that our show, to certain critics has just kind of gone away because, I maybe it's just I'm too close to it.
No, yeah, it is a common thing, and I don't know if it's because it's more slapstick in nature than other comedy shows kind of around that same time. But yeah, it is often left out of these lists, and it's for my money, I think there are metrics behind this. One of the most popular shows of the decade. So it
holds up, and it holds up for families to watch with their kids.
Right,
it's something that they feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, it's I think you're being too hard on yourself with the social media. I mean, you're retweeting, you're liking things. You got a hold of us, so you've got some knowledge.
You can give yourself credit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're not on Snapchat or anything, but you're.
I have a particular set of skills.
Yeah, right. Taken 5. No. This is a question I guess we didn't have on the list, but I was going to ask. We're a couple of Michigan boys who grew up near Flint. I noted that when we were having a conversation before. And the show obviously is set in suburban Detroit. I don't know how, it doesn't really get too specific, but what's your relationship with the state of Michigan, or what was that kind of like?
I'll tell you what, Michigan is where the nucleus of my getting the role in Home Improvement started.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I mean, pick a spot in the world, and it happens to be Michigan. I was doing summer theater at Hope Summer Rep in Holland, Michigan.
Right. Yeah.
And I worked. We did a play called Strider, and I worked with John David Lutz, who was a teacher at Evansville.
Okay.
Who came up to direct this show, and he had already done this show at school with another cast, and he wanted to recreate it for summer theater at Hope Summer Rep. But this was my first run-in with a director who wanted to recreate something that I wasn't involved in. And we kind of butted heads. I said, well, no, I don't want to do it that way. I kind of see it going this way. And we butted heads. And finally, we came to an understanding, and it was a really good production, and we became friends. And years later, John calls and says, listen, we need an actor for this playwrights conference down in New Harmony, Indiana. These guys who just came off the first season of Roseanne have started a work in progress for new playwrights, and they need actors to read the plays in progress. Would you be interested? I go, sure, I think so. Well, we can only pay you $100 a week, but we can put you up and give you food, and it's 2 weeks. So I said, sure. And that's where I met the producers, creators of Home Improvement, maybe 4 or 5 years before actually doing Home Improvement.
Wow. And then, it's full circle. The show was set there. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. Jordan?
Yeah, so we also, in preparation for this, we solicited a couple questions from our audience to see if they had anything they wanted to ask you. So here's a couple littered through here, and this is the first one. This comes from Emma on Twitter, and she asked, do you miss the flannel? Do you wear a lot of flannel still, or is that a thing of the past for you?
It's hard to wear a lot of flannel in California when it's 90 degrees.
Yeah, that must be tough for you.
You're not going to wear it on the golf course later?
No, but when I went off and did a play in Calgary or whatever, I'll wear flannel once in a while. But it's like wearing a beacon. All of a sudden, if I'm in flannel, it's like flashing lights as I walk down the street. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
So I have shirts, but they're not my go-to shirts.
Sure. Yeah, I think that checks out. Yeah, it'd be like wearing a tool belt, and
exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we're going to transition into the speed round. It doesn't necessarily have to be especially speedy, but the idea is that we're going to ask you maybe less intricate questions, and we'll just kind of go back and forth here. So you up for it, Richard?
Speed round, huh? So this is where you really get into my psyche.
We're going to grill you. Yeah, no, I don't think so. All right, Jordan, you want to go ahead and start things off?
All right, we'll start you off with something pretty easy.
Softball.
So you basically got a number 1 through 8 to put in here. So what's your favorite season of Home Improvement?
Favorite season?
Mm-hmm.
First season.
All right,
good. Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, I was going to say, and you don't have to. You can elaborate as much as you want, or none at all. That's perfectly fine. So
no, this is a speed round. Come on.
All right.
Now I'm gonna wish I hadn't said that, because I feel like I'm gonna want more information. This question comes from Twitter as well. A fan of ours, Sarah. What's your favorite episode of the series?
Favorite episode? Oh yeah. God, there's so many different things that I really enjoyed. Just for the sheer differentness of it was when we went up to Traverse City in the last season.
Oh man, I'm so glad you said that, because all right. I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. I was there. I was staying at the hotel the cast was staying at.
Really?
Yeah, it's something we're going to talk about in the next episode. But I'm 27 now. I was 7 then.
Wow.
But I saw Zachary, Ty, Brian, and JTT. My sister says we saw you at the hotel. I think it was a Holiday Inn or something. But that's really interesting. But I happened to be at the very same hotel, and that was a big deal for me as a 7-year-old. So.
Well, you want to know the secret of why we ended up in Traverse City?
Of course.
You're going to love this. It actually was a catalyst that was a really good thing for Tim, because this is when he quit drinking. Was that the summer before our final season, he got a DUI in Michigan, and he had to do community service. And his community service was bringing the show to Michigan.
I didn't know that. That's not on any of the IMDb.
No.
And I didn't know that as a 7-year-old either.
No, keep it hush hush, because very people know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Traverse City is obviously just beautiful in general, so that's an interesting answer. Next episode, if you're ever going to listen to an episode of our podcast, and I'm not saying that you have to, next one I'm gonna relay my childhood memories of that, so it's going to be really interesting. All right, so. Next one is...
What's your favorite Al moment?
Yeah, favorite Al moment.
My favorite Al moment?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite Al moment? I think it was when Tim invites me over to play poker.
Oh, yeah.
And he said it was... I asked him if there's a theme.
Yeah.
There's a theme, and I come like as a cowboy with a 10-gallon hat.
You got your hat.
We stood at the front door doing that scene because I had this huge hat with a big brim, and I kept raising my head up so that the light would hit me. And every time I did that, Tim cracked up. He just couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, I think that's in the bloopers after that episode. Yeah, that was one of my
favorite moments.
All right. What's the first thing you thought after the show wrapped?
Oh man, how I'm going to miss this.
Yeah.
You know you're going to miss it, but the reality of it is the schedule. There was a comfort in knowing that this amount of time is set aside to do this, and you're with people and you're laughing, and that was my first thought. It's like, boy, I'm going to miss doing this.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. All right. So another fan question. This is from a Twitter user @KigTweets, and she asks, "What is the weirdest interaction, compliment, or gift that you've gotten from a fan?"
Oh gosh. Let's see. There was this wonderful moment when I went to Australia, and we were huge in Australia, and I went to one of the grand champions of Australian football, and as we're leaving, these huge guys, see me. And they come running over, and they have bodyguards for me. I don't know why, because people don't ever, really bother me. They don't, but the company I was working with over there had a couple of bodyguards, and these guys come over and they lift me on their shoulder and start running away with me to go to this party. And my bodyguards are laughing. They're just watching this and laughing, and my wife is behind him, hitting him, going, "Get him! They're taking him away! They're taking him away!" So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was really good. Oh,
and then there was a moment in Washington, D.C. when we went to see the Air and Space Museum. The museum's right there in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to these museums, there's 5,000 buses of high school kids.
Oh, yeah.
And if one sees you, they all see you. And this moment happened, and all of a sudden we're running down the hall, all these people behind us, and they usher us into this room to give me a hat and glasses so that we can continue looking through the museum. That was pretty fun. I felt like a Beatle.
Yeah, that is that feeling. Okay, some of these are maybe not as home improvement centric. What's your favorite food? Might be easier to ask you favorite Al moment than favorite food. Didn't expect that.
Well, you know what? Copper River salmon.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Good.
I'm
good.
a big salmon fan myself, so I can see that. Favorite movie?
Oh gosh. Well, there's the classics like Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Is just so brilliant. And, another movie that isn't that known, but 3 Days of the Condor, I love that. Citizen Kane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. All right, good. What's your favorite place to visit? Favorite place to vacation, even?
Italy.
Wow. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay.
You can't find a bad meal. You just can't find a bad meal in Italy. It's incredible.
I'm getting hungry. Jordan?
Okay. Favorite non-Al role?
I think the character in The Foreigner was one of my favorite roles, and I tried to get that play done into a movie. Found out that Disney owned the rights, and I asked them, I'd love to do this movie, and they went, "Oh yeah, we forgot about that. We've had it for like 10 years, or whatever." And the next week, Tim comes to me and goes, "They offered me this movie." And I said, "Well, Richard should do this." So apparently Disney just didn't want me to do that movie.
Yeah, that's still the original something to be proud of. What's the hardest you've ever laughed in your life? It doesn't have to be anything, monumentous or anything, but just the hardest you ever remember laughing.
It had to have been at rehearsal. One of the days of rehearsal when something got funny and I couldn't recover. It just kept cracking me up and my stomach hurt.
Well, good.
All right. So in 5 years, when they make the Richard Karn biographical film, who's going to play you? Who do you want to play you in that movie?
My son.
That would be cool.
That would be
an Ice Cube.
Ice Cube
kind of thing.
Straight out of Compton. Yeah,
absolutely.
You think he could take on the role? He's got your kind of eccentricities or your movement sort of down.
He does. When I saw him on stage a few times, I would see physical things that I kind of knew I did because of watching myself on film. Finally, right. Seeing him do that, I'm going, wow, that's my move.
Yeah. This is not on the list, but I was wondering, this is something I've often wondered. Did you watch Home Improvement as you were on the show? Like, did you tune in and watch the shows?
We watched it, but I'll tell you, I probably haven't watched most of them since then.
Yeah.
So,
right.
At some point I'm going to have to sit down and just have all those memories wash over me again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so back to the list. Favorite guest star to work with? Lots of good cameos in the show, even through the first 2 seasons. But who's your favorite guest star on Home Improvement?
Well, the K&B Boys.
Yeah.
And the first time they were on, Mickey Jones brought his guitar and he was singing backstage while we were waiting out, and he was singing and talking so much he lost his voice.
Yeah.
So by the time we were filming the show, if you actually go back and watch the first time the K&B Boys, he when you hear Mickey, he says, "Al, he's my hero." He barely talked.
Yeah.
And that's why he was like singing and yelling and having a great time. And Casey Sander and I went to junior high school together. He was a year ahead of me, but we both grew up in Seattle and ended up, reuniting so many years later at rehearsal.
So interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I read that online, but I thought it might be another thing that you never know what's true and what's not. It could be a coincidence.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So 1999, the show ended. It's been a while. What do you think Al is up to right now?
What is Al up to? I think he has kids, and he's doing remodeling for friends and family and word of mouth. Building decks and remodeling kitchens, and maybe even trying to get another little how-to show up.
Yeah. Just can't stop the tool passion from Al.
That's right.
Last speed round question. What's the biggest difference between you and the character of Al?
I think his innocence. Al is very innocent, and that really helps in telling stories, because everybody has to learn, or somebody has to learn for the story to have a moral or whatever like that. So I think Al's innocence, you kind of learn something and then you have to forget it for the next episode.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good.
Well,
that concludes the speed round. I hope the seat didn't get too hot for you.
That was great.
All right. So we just have two more quick questions. Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah. So is there any upcoming projects or anything that you want to plug you're excited about?
Oh gosh. Things just kind of happen to me, and I don't have anything specific right now. There's some theater offered in the future, but I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. For the last 5 years, I've done about 5 different plays around the country, but I don't know. There was something about this guy wanted me to do a show for him where we remodel celebrity bathrooms. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That could be funny, going to Beyonce's bathroom or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that does sound good. All right, so the last official question here. You tweeted about a week ago, Home Improvement, there was a reunion, and then there was talk of a reboot, so I think people would be upset with us if we didn't ask, is there a reboot planned? What's going on kind of with that?
Well, there isn't one planned specifically, because Windancer and Disney, the 2 producers for the show, are still kind of haggling over some things. So there's like a lawsuit going on that they still haven't resolved after 25 years. But once that's done, maybe they can start putting their head together and doing that. And I hope it happens. You
think everybody would be game for that?
I think most people would, yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'd be very excited about it as well. It's a time where a lot of shows are being rebooted. Certainly, shows of even a much lesser quality than a Home Improvement. So I definitely think there's a thirst and a passion for it out there. I think that's about it for our questions. Thank you so much for joining us. And
all right.
Yeah, it was great, and I just know that our listeners are going to love it. Trying to think what else. Jordan, anything in closing that we need to address, or
good luck on the course later today.
Yeah, good luck. It sounds like you probably don't need it, but enjoy the sunny California weather, and maybe we're going to be doing this podcast for You know, we've done 49 episodes, so there's 202. So we got about 2 years left, so maybe somewhere down the line we can have you come back and ask you some different questions if you'd be game for that.
Okay, buddy. You take care.
Well, yeah, thanks so much. And listeners, thank you for joining us, and take care.
Take care, everybody.